Well, I think it's time to get going this morning. We're glad that everybody's here today. We're going to continue somewhat down our series that we've been on, talking about what our stories are. Today, we're going to talk about what is your leadership story, okay? Because everybody in here, in some capacity, is a leader. All right, I don't want you to tune me out and go, I'm not a leader. Yes, you are. In some capacity, everybody in here is a leader. Now, I've got a handout. I hadn't done this in a while, but I want us to, if y'all can help me get these, let me just give a few to this side, and y'all can kind of pass them around in this section, and a few to this section. I think it might be enough for everybody to have one, or you might need to share it with your buddy. I don't know. But we'll get those around. And you see the picture on the screen. Yes, you can see it. Oh, hey, come on in here. Here comes Bobby and Nancy. Somebody has already actually proven our point, or actually they've shown what a servant leader is based on our picture, okay? I came out here last night, and I put trash all over the floor in this classroom. I thought, man, I'm going to make a point, and we're going to, I'm thinking I had plates and napkins and cups and silverware and straws, and I put it all over the place. Well, then I walked in this morning, it was all gone. So a few people got in here early before class, and they already picked it up. I was like, where did all the trash go? But it kind of proved our point. I want us to talk about this picture in just a little bit. I want to wait. Have the handouts, are they making their way around? Be sure you can get to where you can see one. Let me read you a little something that maybe some of you saw this online this year. And I don't know, it didn't matter what color team you cheer for, all right? I'm going to say something about Derrick Henry. I'm sorry. We'll talk about him being a pro athlete, not an Alabama athlete. It's been said a million times that you should treat the cleaning staff the same way you treat the CEO. And NFL superstar Derrick Henry lives by that philosophy. Did y'all see his press conference when he came out and said he wasn't going to play for the Titans anymore? He was going to sign another. I think he signed with Baltimore, didn't he? During his post-game press conference, Henry took some time to thank some members of the Titans who don't get much recognition. Did y'all see that? Did anybody see this? I can't see if anybody's head. He thanked the equipment managers, the kitchen staff, the security crew, and the cleaning crews, and he made sure to thank each of them by name. So probably one of probably the most famous NFL running backs right now. He's had a 2,000-yard season. He's won awards and accolades. He just signed a multi-million-dollar contract with Baltimore, and he spent the majority of his press conference thanking the cleaning crew, the security, and the kitchen staff by name. We're going to talk about what it means to be a servant leader today, and we're going to talk about a lot of things like that. You're going to be given a lot of examples that match that. But what I want us to do first, if you've got your handout, I've given you a sheet that I went back and dug up from a class we did here 14 years ago on leadership. It had a lot of these quotes that you see on your page. Got some more folks coming in. We got plenty of space and room and handouts, and y'all can scoot over and make room for your neighbor. Look, some seats over here to my left and to your right. Just, if you can, quickly scan through those quotes. I know it's a lot of words and a lot of reading. Just tell me, anybody see anything that jumps out? Anything that where you see similarities in these quotes on leadership? Famous quotes on leadership. Anything that you see that you're like, hey, these people are kind of all saying the same thing. I'll give you just a second to read it.
Hey, Mark.
Yes.
What strikes me is that when you think of a leader, you think of somebody kind of taking the charge alone, but it seems like most of these quotes have to center around how a leader brings the other people along with them to make them the best that they can be. A leader's not
Can y'all hear Mary Jane over here on this side?
It's bringing along other people.
She's talking about how leaders bring everybody along, involve other people. It's not a one man and one woman show.
Right.
Yes, I think you can see that. I noticed that there's several. You see the word serve pop up in some of these quotes. You see delegating come up in some of these. I like the one, delegating work works, provided the one delegating works too. I like that one.
I like the one right above it. Don't tell people how to do things. Tell people what to do and let them surprise you with the results.
Yeah, I think we talked about Acts 6 in here a few weeks ago, where it says the apostles handed the work off to those men, and we joked that we don't really find anywhere in Scripture where they come back and those 7 didn't come back and turn in a report to the apostles. They handed it off. And they concentrated on prayer and ministry of the word. I think that came up in a class a few weeks ago. What else jumps out to you about some of these quotes? Anything? Any connections? Any similarities? Thank you for those that have spoken up. Anybody else? That's okay. We're going to move to the bottom. I sent a text out to a few people this past week, and I asked them to provide some input on servant leadership, and we'll get to that in a minute. Some quotes from you guys, from the class that you said. I reached out to 2 people that I consider friends that have both worked for the Disney company for over 20 years. They've got us some things to throw in. But my sister sent me a link to an article about Don Meyer. Any of you remember Don Meyer, the longtime basketball coach at David Liscombe? Did anybody besides me go through one of those boot camp basketball clinics that he put on? And you remember those? Man, why did we go to that? They were so hard. It was like the Army with a basketball. Man, he was a tough coach. He won over 920 games. He was a mentor to all kind of people, coaches and different people in the Southeast especially. And the article that Karen sent me said that he kept his leadership very simple with 3 basic rules. And I've got them here on the page for you, but just with a couple of blanks just to keep you awake, all right? Here was Don Meyer's 3 basic leadership rules. Everybody takes notes. Well, now what does that mean? What he is trying to get people to understand with that is that good leaders realize they don't know everything. Everybody takes notes. I've said in here before, Kaz McCaslin, the founder of Upward, used to always say at the conferences that we would go to, he'd say, it's a dangerous thing to think you have arrived. Everybody takes notes. This sets the tone that leaders must be learners. Leaders must be learners, regardless of how well you perform or how long you've been at it. Listen, man, I know folks that are in their 80s that say, man, this is awesome. I still learn this. This is new. Did you know about this? That encourages me. That encourages me to hear that from an older person, that they're a continual learner. So the first thing is everybody takes notes. You see the second one there? Everybody says please and thank you. This sets a tone of mutual respect. This sets a tone of mutual respect is the blank there to fill in on number 2 for all team members regardless of their role or title. I think back about Derrick Henry thanking the cleaning staff that cleaned the locker room by name. Myers says entitlement and disrespect can divide a team. Have you seen that? you're in a setting, in a business or a school or a workplace or a church or go around, entitlement and disrespect can divide a team. And the last one, this is the one we're going to spend a little time on today. Everybody picks up trash. That was Meyer's third principle. It says that it sends a powerful message from the leadership throughout the team. It demonstrates a servant's mindset. It shows team members that you are there to serve, not to be served. And I took, where'd my phone go? Here it is. I was going to read you one more thing about that. Thank you, Kent. It's actually just an empty folder. We'll get it out of the way. Of the article that Karen sent me, there was one more thing under picking up trash that I like, because here's what I've had people say to me before, and I think this answers it. Because sometimes they'll go, well, listen, I've been tasked to do this. I've been gifted to do this. I can't go over here. You heard anybody do that? They find an excuse of why they shouldn't be. You know, y'all have already heard the joke that when we built the 2 soccer fields, that we had people say that, well, picking up rocks isn't my spiritual gift. And to my reply is, it's not anybody's spiritual gift. You just go pick up the rocks. And so Myers goes on to say this about the picking up trash. It isn't about engaging in trivial tasks or doing work out of your zone or becoming an unfocused jack of all trades. It is about seeing and seizing select opportunities to set the right example and tone for the entire enterprise to live up to and emulate. That's what it's about. Now, so that leads us to our picture that's on the screen. Let's talk about it just for a little bit. It's Walt Disney picking up trash in Disneyland. He obviously didn't live to see Disney World completed. It was just a vision on paper when he passed away. So this is him on the streets in Disneyland picking up trash by a trash can. I think everybody knows who he is, but just in case, Walt Disney, American film producer, director, screenwriter, voice actor, animator, entrepreneur, entertainer, international icon, and philanthropist. His net worth, if you take into account for inflation at his death, would today be $1 billion when he passed away in 1966. Okay, so you see a picture. Here's one of the most popular and wealthiest men on the planet, who has thousands of employees, and he's picking up trash. So here's my question: what do you see when you see that picture? What comes to mind? Huh? Attention to details. Yes, that was important to him. What else? What else do you see? Anything? Any observation about the picture? Huh? Yes. I believe this demonstrates humility. Let me throw a question in as you're thinking, and you can continue to say whatever you think about the picture. How do you think his employees viewed him? Well, they do throughout the entire organization, and they still do 60 years later. Yeah. Can you imagine if you were over here somewhere and you're a manager training someone else in another part of the park, and they look over and they see the guy that owns the place doing that? So how do you think this shows equality among the workers? I'm trying to get you to think.
Good example.
Yeah, it's a good example.
Nothing is beneath you.
Yeah. I mean, it would be easy to say, we pay people to do this. But he goes out and does it himself, too. How about as far as raising expectations for the other people that work for him? I mean, man, don't you want to work for somebody like that? Don't you want to serve with somebody like that? Don't you want to be a part of an organization that the person at the top acts like that? Don't you want to be a part of that? What else? What else do you see? Anything else?
Taking care of the little insignificant things.
Yeah.
Those things matter.
Al said he's taking care of the insignificant things because those things matter.
Mark, you shared that picture with me, and one thing that kept coming to my mind was that that's really what God demonstrated to us with our mess, that he came down, through his son Jesus. There's a song, "Oh, cleanser of the mess I've made," that it just reminded me of that we have the ultimate example.
Right. Did y'all hear what Robin said over here? Okay, good. Thank you. Kent, go ahead.
It really gets your attention. I mean, things like this blow me away. Becky and I have stayed for our anniversary at one of the most beautiful, awesome hotels, and it's actually local. And so afterwards, Becky said, "Gee, you really like a mug of this place, as a keepsake." So I went and asked the maid if we could have a mug, and it was the owner's wife.
Wow.
She brought us a mug. She said, "Just keep it. You can have it." But man, that got my attention. The owner's wife is cleaning up rooms.
Well, yeah, and I've told the story in here before, and it made me think of it, there's a book written back in the 90s, I think. It was called The Seven Keys to the Success of the Magic Kingdom, and this is played out, not planned, but they see someone in a suit picking up trash. They can't figure out what's going on. And later that afternoon, they're in an event where Michael Eisner, who is the CEO of Disney at the time, gets up to speak. And they go, "That's the guy that was picking up trash a while ago." Like it has continued to be perpetuated throughout the organization. Let me read you what our own Paige Stevenson, Rod and Gail's daughter, Rod and Gail, Paige has worked for Disney for 21 years. She said, I reached out to her and sent her the picture. I said, "Just tell me what comes to mind." Paige wrote me back a lot of good stuff, but I'm going to read just some excerpts of it. She said, "I started in parks and resorts, and in April I'll have 21 years at Disney. Early on, I was taught to focus on the guest, cast, and then business. It was something I saw my leaders demonstrate in their interactions." So again, you notice that? It was something I saw my leaders demonstrate. So she, as a young employee, is seeing things demonstrated. She said they considered us internal guests. I like that. The employees were guests. That's how they were treated by their bosses. Early in my career, several leaders made a huge impression on me by walking the talk. Have y'all heard that phrase before? That's walking the talk, isn't it? What we see on the screen. And she wanted to say, and they demonstrated it every day. She said, even today in HR, I use what those members taught me as I interact with my team. My job is now supporting employees in several Latin American countries. In leadership, it's all about how you treat others and show them you respect them, no matter who they are or where they came from. That's what Paige sent in response to this picture. The second person I reached out to is John McCall. Y'all probably don't know him, but he married Milton and Laurel Sewell's daughter, Holly, who's lifelong friends with my wife. And so I texted John and sent him the picture, and this is what he sent back. Servant leadership is one of the keys to being a cast member at Disney. Walt was notorious for walking Disneyland and picking up trash. He believed it was everyone's part to make it as perfect as it could be. When they saw Walt do it, they wanted to do the same. A reminder, I guess, and listen to this, a reminder that a leader sets an example for the organization, then others follow. See, it's hard to lead an organization and it all just to be talk, and there's no action behind it. John said it was set that example, and he said it goes for attitude and work ethic and other things, and he says it's sustained by everyone having ownership. He said it's not just Walt's park, it's our park. And so even now, when I'm in a park, I stop and pick stuff up. Now, both of these folks are high up in management now. It's not their jobs. But I was in Hollywood Studios with Paige years ago, and I saw her stop and pick up trash. It's not just something they do for show. It's ingrained in the society of the organization. You're like, man, Mark, why are you talking so much about? I'm just trying to get you to think. And then we're going to get to Mark chapter 10. If you want to go ahead and flip over there, and guess what? This is all a biblical principle. All this stuff we're talking about is a biblical principle that Jesus gave an example for us a long time ago. But I also sent a text out to some of you guys in the class that's sitting here today. And I said, what's servant leadership? Folks in this class, I'm not going to use names, but just this is what I got back from folks that are sitting in the room today. Someone said a servant leader gives their all. They are passionate about their cause. They don't care about a title or recognition. Another person went on to say a servant leader is someone who does God's work unseen. I would rather follow a leader who hasn't forgotten their story of struggle and perseverance. Another person sent back, a servant leader is someone who makes the right decisions for the right reasons. They contribute positively any way they can. They make those around them better, builds up others, helps others reach their goals. That's just as good as some of the quotes on our page we got going here. Here's another person sent this. A servant leader is a person whom others would follow. Dr. Lynn Anderson's book, They Smell Like Sheep, and I know it's specifically written to elders, but one of the very first sections in that book, it talks about if a leader, a shepherd has a flock. A leader has somebody following them. That's what this is saying. A servant leader is a person whom others would follow. A person who sees themselves as part of the team, not above it. They lead by example. That keeps coming up. Not just words. Titles are usually earned or given because of actions. Leaders can be named, but usually rise to the front because of what they do. One more, last one. Somebody else in the class sent this about this picture to what servant leadership meant to them. He said Walt set the expectation by being the example. Listen to these words they use. A servant leader is humble, persistent, empathetic, positive, leads with integrity, empowers others in multiple ways, but largely by being a servant. Accountable, dependable, values people, and they're willing and able to get their hands dirty. In the role of leadership, it is so important to relate to the people you're leading. I've always been more willing to follow someone who leads with a servant heart. That's from folks in here. Sent that to me. What's servant leadership? What else? Anybody else? Anything's popped in your head about this picture before we move to Mark 10 that you think of when you hear servant leadership?
Hey, Mark, a lot of times we don't see the trash because we're focused too high up.
Ooh. Doug, did y'all hear Doug over there? Doug said a lot of times we don't see the trash because we're focused looking up. Yeah, because there was a lot of it in here. I'm sorry. My intention was we were all going to pick it up. I feel bad that 2 or 3 people did. I've never actually walked through a church building and just thrown trash in the floor. It was kind of liberating. I was just like, woo!
Mark, looking back, I remember that leaders I had the most respect for used the terms us and we a lot, and the ones that used the terms I and me were weak and poor leaders.
Yeah. Us and us. Say it again real loud, Ed, for people over here. Hollered at Doug.
Okay. I've always, looking back at people in my life that I considered strong leaders in my professional career in sports, they use the term us and we.
Us and we.
And the ones that use the terms I and me were more of a poor, weak leadership model in my eyes.
Yeah. What else? These are good. Thank y'all for speaking up and sharing today. I know it's a big room and a lot of people, and folks don't like to talk real loud. Mike, you're going to have to yell out now. You're soft-spoken. Say it loud.
I think this just says something to me
Yeah. Because truthfully, somebody would have come along in the next 20 minutes, 30 minutes, hour, and would have gotten that, right? They would have got it. They'd have emptied the can. It wouldn't have stayed there for weeks. But before the Easter egg hunt yesterday, somebody emptied the trash. Before the Easter egg hunt yesterday, somebody cleaned the bathrooms in our concession stand. See, things don't just happen. Like, people serve. And if you come to the Rock during the week, somebody is going to come out and lead by example. And what I've seen happen with this particular individual, whose name may or may not be Ryan House, is he comes out, and if you ever pulled up with a load of stuff at the Friendship Center in front of the Rock, what do you get? Hey, how are you doing? Do you need some help getting that out of your car? Do I need to go to the kitchen and get a cart to help you unload that? Hey, let me get that for you. You don't need to pick that up. What? You see that? That's this. And see, what that is, even though he'll shoot me for saying this, is Ryan's the kind of person that's a leader that you'd want to follow because of that, right? He's actually not the person that wants to get up on the podium in front of everybody, but doesn't that speak more volume about his leadership? Can I come get that for you? Can I carry that for you? Don't mess with that. Just put that right there. I'll get it. You go ahead. Do you see the difference in servant leadership? That's what you get.
You got so much good stuff, it's hard to come up with something, but swing back to making a direct link to the church. This kind of behavior demonstrates an outward focus rather than an inward focus.
Yes. I like that. Thank you. Yes, I'm sorry. Oh, go, Lonnie, then go ahead, Sarah Beth.
It always has a lasting effect on people.
Yes. A lasting effect to people. Sarah Beth.
To me, this symbolizes that how precious Disneyland and everything that he created, Walt Disney, was so precious to him, right?
Yes.
That when he saw trash laying upon it, he just couldn't stand it. It was so precious to him, and that reminds me of how the Lord feels and God feels of us. That it's so precious to him that he just can't stand that trash upon us, or us to be soiled, and so he sent his son.
Yes. Oh, man. Thank you, Sarah Beth, for sharing that. Yeah, I'm sorry, Dr. Freeman.
I think a good leader rebukes and gives constructive criticism.
All right. He does. He or she does. Sorry, I didn't mean to say he. I'm just thinking about Walt Disney. Sorry.
That's my education. He is representative of both genders.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Freeman. All right, let's do this for the next 10 minutes. If you'll go to Mark chapter 10. We got 3 people who are going to read to us today from Mark 10. So go ahead and get over to about verse 35. It's a very familiar story. Let me just set it up, and then Amanda's going to start us out with a New Century Version, Denise Willingham from the Message, and Julianne Turner from the Amplified Bible. But here's what's going to happen. In Mark chapter 10, verse 35, James and John, again, you know the story. It's in several of the first 4 books of the New Testament. In Mark's version, James and John comes to Jesus in verse 35, and they say, hey, we want you to do us a favor. And Jesus says, what do you want? And verse 37, they say, when you sit on your glorious throne, we want to sit in places of honor next to you, one on your right and the other on your left. But Jesus says, you don't know what you're asking. Are you able to drink from the bitter cup of suffering I'm about to drink? Are you able to be baptized with the baptism of suffering I must be baptized with? Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're able. And Jesus says, you will indeed drink from my cup and be baptized with my suffering, but I have no right to say who'll sit on my right and my left. God has prepared those places for the ones he has chosen. So they've asked for 2 special places, right? I mean, these are the followers, been with him for years, and they've come and said, hey, you're going to be up here, we want to be on either side of you. Well, guess what? The other 10 in verse 41, when the other 10 disciples heard what James and John had asked, they were mad. What? Who do you think? What do you think you're doing asking for this special place? And that sets up to what Jesus is about to do. He says, calls them together, and then he's about to read this, okay? Amanda, take off for us.
Jesus called them together and said, "The other nations have rulers. You know that those rulers love to show their power over the people, and their important leaders love to use all their authority. But it should not be that way among you. Whoever wants to become great among you must serve the rest of you like a servant. Whoever wants to become the first among you must serve all of you like a slave. In the same way, the Son of Man did not come to be served. He came to serve others and to give his life as a ransom for many people."
The Son of Man Jesus didn't come to be served. He came to serve others. I mean, y'all get this? You're going to hear it over and over and over. Denise, go ahead and get the message for us.
Jesus got them together to settle things down. You've observed how godless rulers throw their weight around, he said. And when people get a little power, how quickly it goes to their heads. It's not going to be that way with you. Whoever wants to be great must become a servant. Whoever wants to be first among you must be your slave. That is what the Son of Man has done. He came to serve, not to be served, and then to give away his life in exchange for many who are held hostage.
He came to serve, not to be served. Julianne from the Amplified Bible.
Calling them to himself, Jesus said to them, "You know that those who are recognized as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their powerful men exercise authority over them. But this is not how it is among you. Instead, whoever wishes to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wishes to be first and most important among you must be a slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many."
The Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. Thank y'all for reading those passages. So if we say Jesus is our example, right? We all agree with that? Jesus is our example. Then what would be our response to Mark chapter 10? How should we act? We'd like to say that we really like to say that we're going to follow Jesus' example until Jesus does something that we really don't want to do, right? Oh, here's our example. Oh, I don't want to serve. If anybody in the Disney organization deserved to not be the one picking up trash, wouldn't we agree to say that, well, it shouldn't be the person who founded the company, right? Logic says he's earned the right not to be the custodian. But as a servant leader, he didn't see it that way. Well, what does Philippians 2 tell us? Can't the same thing be said about Jesus? He was God who came to earth in the form of his son, and he died for all us. If you guys have already been getting to where we're going to end today, you already know. If anyone deserved to be served, wouldn't we agree that Jesus would be, right? If we're going to argue who deserves to be served, well, the Son of God, right? But Paul in Philippians chapter 2, if you want to look, and you don't have to look, in verse 5, he reminds us, remember, you must have the same attitude that Jesus had. Hey, go ahead, Stephen, and flip to that next slide. Though he was God, Paul is writing about Jesus. He did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges. He took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being when he appeared in human form. He humbled himself in obedience to God and died a criminal's death on a cross. Therefore, God elevated him to the place of highest honor and gave him the name above all other names, that in the name of Jesus every knee should bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth. Jesus came to be a servant. It's the example we follow. Then God exalts him to the highest place. Here's the thing. Here's it. We got 4 minutes. You ready? I need to make sure you don't leave here today that you heard me say that you're a leader somewhere. Don't focus on if you work at a bank, don't focus on just the president. If you're a school, don't just focus on just the principal or the superintendent. If you work for a business, don't just focus on the owner. If you're in a church, don't think about just the elders. I need your mind to take you to a place to realize that you are a leader in some capacity somewhere, okay? This is for all of us. The question that I want you to leave you with today is, what kind of leader do you want to be? I need you just to stop just for 20 seconds and think about that. What kind of leader do you want to be? Don't say it out loud. I just need you to think. Are you going to follow the example? And we talked a lot about Walt Disney, but guys, we got to end it. We got to end it here. Are you going to follow the example of Jesus and be a servant leader? See, as Sarah Beth and some of you have already hit upon, is this picture that we used in our class back last fall that someone bought for me, and I got it hanging in my office now. I'm really excited about it. It's Jesus coming to get that sheep, and that sheep is muddy and dirty, and he wants that sheep to be clean, but he's not going to care. He's not going to care when he puts his arm around that sheep that he's going to get mud on him. Is he? That's a servant leader. He wants the lamb to be safe and warm and happy and clean, but he may have to get in the mud with him. Walt didn't care to pick up a piece of trash, and Jesus didn't care to get around you to help you get clean. So, are you going to follow the example of Jesus and be a servant leader? He came to serve, not to be served. That's servant leadership. You're dismissed.